Welcome to the weekly podcast dedicated to amazing people with incredible journeys. But how did they get there? Who were the characters that impacted their stories? And how are they paying it forward now? Sit back and be inspired to go out and make a difference in the origin stories of the people you know, and even some that you don't. Welcome to the Prequel.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back into the Prequel podcast. I am your host, Mike Azzolina, and I am so excited to have you back here for another episode where we explore the story of a person out there whose story is really cool and really important, just like yours, and how it impacts the stories of others like you and the people they come into contact with every single day. Today on the show, we have author and editor Lorna Hollifield. She is from Charleston, New Jersey, and we get into a pretty in-depth conversation about her journey becoming a published author and the struggles that she encountered, how she became an author, and the people who pushed her. But before we do, I wanted to talk a little bit about my own experience in that regard, my own story in that regard. As you know, I am currently working through the editing process of my own book, Heartbeats, and I'm very excited about the process, but I'd be remiss if I didn't sort of talk about what got me here. I've always, seen myself kind of on the cusp of writing. I've written for a couple of baseball blogs. I've enjoyed writing about sports. And then I took a writing course when I was going for my master's degree in curriculum and instruction, and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with creating characters. I fell in love with telling stories in writing. My grandfather was one of the greatest oral storytellers you will ever meet. But I never really took that, I never really used that side of storytelling. So it wasn't until that class that I decided, maybe I like this writing thing. But I put it to the side because I was so focused on becoming a principal. I started writing a book over the last year or so, a fiction book that I'm still working on and still kind of pushing through. But after I had to leave the principal role for my health reasons, I wanted to write a book about being an educational leader, being an educator, and sort of fell into this idea of much love and the characteristics that made me the educator and the leader that I was. And I sent it on to a publisher, just the one who ended up taking me. And my first conversation with them was incredible because they said, "Look, we like it, but your story is what's going to bring it to life." So what they wanted me to do is infuse my story of growing up with a heart condition and working that into my what I've already written and how it brought me from 5th grade Mike to 36-year-old Mike. And their push was really all I needed because after that, everything changed. The game changed. And I became so passionate about telling my story in a vulnerable, raw way that I think it might be one of the best achievements that I've ever had in all truth. I think when I read it back, I smile knowing that those are my words, those are my experiences, and those are the things that, helped me to become who I am, even though it was difficult at the time. And I tell you this because, don't ever close the window on your story. A few weeks back, I interviewed Dom, if you remember that conversation. He said, "Don't ever doubt your own story." And I'm going to come right back and affirm that for you. Don't ever doubt that your story has value or adds value to other people. I feel like as I, interview and talk to more of these amazing people that are out there across this great big world, that I learn that all stories have impact. All stories have lessons. It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, where you've come from. There's always something in there that people can learn from. So be vulnerable and tell it. Use it as a tool to impact others. And I'm so fortunate to be able to lend my story to all of the people that want it, in print, and hopefully one day in front of them, in front of their eyes, and delivering it in a different way. But I value all of the stories that I've heard to this point, the people in my life whose stories I get to know every day. And I tell you this because the book writing process has really opened another avenue to that. So as you're working through your own prequel, write it down. You never know who's going to want to read it one day. As you celebrate your successes and work through your trials and tribulations and your fears and you run toward those, write about the experience because it might empower somebody else to do the same thing. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about with Lorna today. It's like I've done this before, that transition. I mean, come on. Lorna talks to us a lot throughout our conversation about her experience in the author world. And it's something that I've learned from her is that it's not always rainbows and sunshine, but she's seen the sunshine and she likes the warmth that she feels from it. And she's got some good stuff going on with some incredible advice to take away, whether you're a writer or someone who's chasing a different dream. There's a lot in this conversation that I know I benefited from and that you will benefit from too. So without further ado, let me bring on in author and editor, Lorna Hollifield. All right, everyone, welcome into the Prequel studio where I am joined by author of Ocean Night and Tobacco Sun and the chief editor of the Charleston Women Magazine, Lorna Hollifield. Thanks for coming in and spending some time with us. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime I see like author or editor, it's like right after my own heart because you're a storyteller by nature then, right? Like, and that's what this podcast is all about. So I want to jump right in with you and just tell me about your experience with writing. Tell us about the books and then we'll jump into your story and how you got here.
I've always been a writer. I don't know how to be anything else. That's kind of the most important part of this because a lot of new writers, ask, how did you write it? How did you know? I'm like, well, the writing part, I couldn't help but write it. So I don't know how to help you there because that's just an innate thing for me. But once you get into the process of actually bringing it to fruition, and realizing passion is not going to be enough. You have to have a lot of effort and a lot of other things. I can help with that part of the process. I wrote my first novel when I was I think I finished it when I was 23.
Wow.
And I thought oh my God, this is gold. This is going to be my ticket, got horribly rejected, chewed up, spit out, all of that, and then I realized that novel sucks. And so then I wrote a second one that I finished when I was maybe 25, chewed up, spit out. And then I wrote my third one was Tobacco Sun. And I was like, this is the one. I really knew it then. I thought I knew it before, but I really knew it. And I just kind of tapped into, my upbringing in North Carolina. It's funny because I live in Charleston now, and Charleston is there's a lot of old money. There's a lot of beauty. There's a lot of, this old South. And the part of the South I grew up in was a lot of salt of the earth and grit and poverty. And, I grew up in Appalachia, and then with my husband's first job, we moved into tobacco country. And, that's where I started realizing this is what I know. I know these people. And I saw this little shack. I'd actually had a grand mal seizure while I was driving. And so my husband at the time was selling insurance, and he made me go with him on his appointments because he didn't want to leave me at home because he was scared I would have another seizure when we were trying to figure out what was going on with it. And so we ended up out in the boondocks, and I saw this little shack in the middle of this just almost eerily swaying tobacco. And I just saw this character, and it was the main character. I just saw this woman in the 40s and this little simple dress with blood all over it. And I'm like, why is there blood on her dress? It just started kind of coming together. And then I heard this song, called Poison and Wine by the Civil Wars. I was obsessed with this band. And once I heard the song, I started thinking of this love story, but it wasn't between a man and a woman. It was sisters and who had been torn apart by circumstance and a shared love interest and abuse and all these things that happened in the tobacco. And that's where the story came from. And so I felt I really poured my heart and soul into that book. And I finally got a book deal with that. I got, a publishing deal with a label called Pen Name Publishing. And, um, then in between that book and my next book, a lot of other things happened. Do you want to hear about the second book yet? Because I'm being kind of long-winded about that first one.
I well, what I want to I want to make sure first of all everything's okay. Like after the grand mal seizure, like everything was okay.
Yeah. So I had seizures for 7 years.
Okay.
And then they mysteriously disappeared. So
Wow. Well, I'm glad you're okay. That like struck me there for a moment. But yeah, I want to hear about Ocean Knight. Tobacco Sun, you mentioned the character and maybe you'll talk a little bit about this when you talk about Ocean Knight. But we talked before the show that I'm working on a book that is completed. I'm like in the editing process now, but I'm also working on like my first fiction. And one of the things that really struck me in writing my first like fiction book was how connected I become to the characters. Where I write a chapter and something emotional happens to them, and I have to get up and walk out of the room because of how emotional or where it hits me. Has that happened to you with either Tobacco Sun or Ocean Knight?
both, especially the Ocean at Night, because I don't even think now that I'm a mom, my little girl's 2, and I wrote the Ocean at Night before I had her. I don't think I could write it now because it's about an abduction and there's an element in it that touches on human trafficking, even though it's kind of that part lingers in the background of the story. It's like too painful now because I associate it with my child. But there's been many times like my husband's walked in, I'm like crying while I'm writing, and he's like, "What is what's?" I'm like, "No, it's fine. Just out, like just you know." This is part of it, or I'll miss my characters. Like, I feel like they're real. They become a part of you. If they don't, then you're not, probably writing with everything you have. I mean, if you don't know your own characters, where's that leave you? Where's that leave the narrative? So,
Right. I just like I walked out of the room. It was just last week. I wrote like a really emotional chapter, and I stood up and I was like, "Yep, gonna have to leave you for a little bit." Like sorry, man, gotta go. Can't hang with you. So tell us a little bit about Ocean at Night with Tobacco Sun. I have both in my cart right now. So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about Ocean at Night and how that came to be and a little bit about the story.
The Ocean at Night, again, just the characters started kind of showing up. It started with Till, the main character. And again, writing about poor people and down and out people, and maybe it's from coming from really humble beginnings and seeing people with more humble beginnings than I had, and I don't know what makes me write about that, but I don't like to write about shiny people. I like to write people that kind of find redemption, or turn over rocks, see all the ugly things under it, and then fix it. And I write about fixers a lot. And so Till McCone is the main character in The Ocean at Night, and she's a teenager who lives on Folly Beach, and her mom was kind of like was a teen mom, and she's kind of not the mom you would want to have, and she's kind of backward and trashy, and she works for a property manager there, which is how they earn their keep. And Till is always like on the outside looking in, like she's not the teenager like hanging off the golf cart, like in her bikini, sun-kissed, having a good time. She's cleaning up the carnival after it's over. And she hunts rare fossils, and that's like kind of her little side gig. And she wants to like do something with that because she likes to find things that were once alive. Like she loves like finding something that once existed and making it good again, that people would just kind of throw to the side. And that's kind of her thing. And she's on the beach one night and doesn't realize that she's the last person to see a child before she goes missing. What she sees, she thinks is just a child kind of pitching a fit, not wanting to leave the beach. And then she realizes much later, like, oh my God, I was the last person to see this kid. But at that point, she is freshly graduated high school. She's so young and starts having this very inappropriate kind of monsters ball, if you've ever seen that movie, like knowing each other through our pain love affair with the missing girl's father. And he's like in his late 30s, and they're kind of like, okay, I don't know if this is cool. Like, what are we doing? And it's kind of coming of age and raw and sexy and gritty and awful, and it you're like rooting for them and against them at the same time. But then there's like this kidnapping, and then we realize it might be human trafficking, which is huge in South Carolina, but it just kind of lingers in the shadows. And it becomes kind of an epic that doesn't get resolved for 2 decades, and the love, the human trafficking, the whole thing. And that's the coziest thing I've ever written. I love that book still. Just I so have the hots for this Will Cianciola character. My husband was like, should you be should I be jealous? Ah, you know, I mean, but he's just so like so yummy. It's not like it's not a romance type book, but it just, because that's not my thing, but it just gives you that like raw, you just root for like ugly love in it or something. And,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think I got really close to those characters. So
Yeah, you're speaking right to me, Lorna, because that's, I sort of wrote about like a little bit of both sides of myself in two different
oh my god,
characters
that's
in the book
that
that
goes
I wrote.
fun. Jimmy
Yeah.
and Sidra, the two main characters, or if I just split, I have
Yep.
this one side of myself where I'm like confident and like I walk into
Yep.
a room like, there's like blues music playing, like I'm gonna own it. And then there's a side that's like, oh my god, I've shown it. Like my other character has a birthmark on half her face, and it's the first thing they see. So I feel like people see the ugliest part of me. And anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's
You're fine.
what I did with those two characters. So I think
That's so cool.
yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's so cool to me because I think like for me it's similar. I have this really confident side of me where I'll walk in a room and try and be life of the party and join in on every conversation. But then there's like this other side of me that watches that person and is like, man, I really wish I was. And they're brothers. So, one's one's like the superstar. What's that?
Yours are brothers? Mine were
Yeah.
sisters. That's so weird. Oh my god.
Look at us. Like, I feel, did we just become best friends? I think we're going to end the podcast right here, ladies and gentlemen. Lorna and I are now best friends. So yeah, so they're brothers and they're both in high school and they're both football players. And they had lost their father the year before, who was their coach. So little brother's the backup, and sort of chaos ensues from, and they almost switch roles, like they almost switch personalities as the story goes on because of what they go through. So yeah, but I'm kind of stuck in the middle right now because I had to walk away from the characters. But yes, Lorna, we are best friends. That is fact. And I think, as I listen to you, I just hear this storyteller. Like you're telling what you've written, but you tell it in such a way that like I could listen to you tell the story. Like I could listen to you just tell it without having to pick it up. I'm still buying it because now I'm like all kinds of invested in your characters. But I do want to know, like, you talked about your interest in writing and that you've always been interested in writing. Was there a person that, like a storyteller in your family or someone that like a teacher that you had that embedded this in you, or did it just kind of come about naturally?
Both, but I think it's totally in my DNA. My mom's side of the family are more the subjects I would write about. They're the salt of the earth people. They don't, everything they do is kind of fabulous, but they don't realize it. They have no like knowledge of the arts, or they just like are those people. And they're kind of the ones I watch. But my dad's side, they're the artsy ones, and they are all musicians, or my dad always was writing songs, and they're all creative. And so I feel like it's just kind of like in me. And the fact that I'm such an empath, and I was an only child for a really long time, I would just kind of make up people to like talk to and but I'm also an extrovert. So I like wanted to like put it somewhere. And I had like, 1,000 imaginary friends, and it kind of started like that. Then also I learned to read really early. My grandmother only made it through the 10th grade, and which might have been one of the more educated of my grandparents, because back then, again, Appalachia, people, they didn't finish school. They worked in the farm. They did these other things. And I think it kind of bothered her because she was always like doing things to show people like how intelligent she was. And I've got this. I'm as smart as anybody. And she taught me to read really young because I stayed with her during the day. So I could read anything by the time I was 4, pretty much. And I would pick up Reader's Digest and read it, and everybody would laugh. And I would ask what the things were I didn't know, which were all, usually just something I shouldn't know at all. And I was also I was so into the Gulf War. Like, I would read the paper, and I wanted to, like, follow everything about the Gulf War. Like, that was a really big deal to me. And so I just started reading and creating. And then when we weren't reading, she would watch soap operas all day. So then there's, like, the drama. And it just kind of all came together, nature and nurture. And then when I was in first grade, my teacher wrote in my report card, like, we think Lorna's an author. And I was like, I am an author. Like, it just kind of like clicked. And it's funny because in high school, I ended up going to the prom with her son. And we were always close. And he since has passed away, which was terrible and tragic. And I've just kind of kept in touch with her. And then I thanked her in my first novel for, you were the first one to call me an author. And something you said to a 6-year-old mattered. In case you were ever worried, it didn't. It did. And I never forgot. And it just kind of, I don't know, sometimes just that third party endorsement, somebody, which you don't need it. You might never get it from anybody, but I did, and it mattered.
And I love that you said that. I have a lot of teachers that listen to this podcast coming from the world of education. Yeah. So that'll definitely, so listen, teachers, you hear that? Lorna just said it. What you say will matter. And honestly, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think, the words that we use, the way that we interact with, the stories of others, will help them kind of choose their path, right? We impact people along their way. And sometimes, and I've said this to people, when your students look back and they look at the chapter that you helped them write, what are they going to call it? What's your character going to be in their story? And it sounds like that teacher is a very positive person along your way. But I do want to ask you a little bit about the obstacles that you face, because you touched on them a little bit at the beginning, right? You talked a little bit as you were trying to get some books out there, some novels out there. There were some hard times. So talk to us a little bit about, your how you push through those. Like, what did you do to kind of overcome those parts? Because that's part of our prequel, right? Like, we do come across difficult and challenging times in our lives. So tell me a little bit about what you did to push yourself through and get to where you are now.
It clicked for me kind of early. I went through a little bit of the nervousness of like, oh, this is my baby. Do I want to show it to someone? I mean, but not long. Because it scares me far more to think that I never get my dream. My dreams are everything. They always have been. And it's funny because I'm so like this, like artsy, like this person. And my husband is a financial advisor. He is like the most logical, like mathematical. He always tells me I'm the only illogical thing he ever did. He married me at 20, fever dream. And it was complete, and that's what I needed. I mean, if somebody had married me in any other way that wasn't just like, they're abandoning anything they've ever thought about life, I don't think I would have done it. And so, and we're married, God, how old am I? 37. So, I mean, it's been almost 18 years. And so it worked. Everybody, oh my God, people freaked out. They were like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is crazy. And I come from, my parents have been divorced multiple times, and they're like, all wanting to hold hands and jump off a bridge. Like, what are these kids doing? And anyway, but we made it, and it was great. But he was a big part of like, he's like, okay, you have the passion and you've written this novel, you've done the work. So let's break down the steps of how you're going to get this to market. I'm going to help you with that, and you're going to do it. And every day you're going to take these steps. And I'm so happy for that, because I think I would have just kept screaming from the rooftops, I'm a writer and here's what I have. But I don't know if I would have ever logically like done the research without him kind of, that's just the way he supported me. And, and there's times it's been my turn to support him. A lot of times he's too logical, and I'm like, no, you got to dream bigger than that. You're bigger than this, and now his story's amazing too. He comes from a, crazy very humble beginning, very, and now he tells people millions of dollars what to do, and he has his own thing, but I dream, and he's logic, and it just kind of works. So that's how I overcome some of those obstacles, was just him going like, you just have to do the work. And it clicked that it's that easy. So I started researching how to find agents, how to find publishers, how to write the query letter properly, how to write the synopsis properly. And that's when you get into all the boring parts that suck, because no one wants to write the query letter and the synopsis and get like 89 rejections from an agent. No one wants that. But that's part of it. And the rejection stung. There were anytime he found me drinking whiskey in the bathtub in the dark, he knew it was a bad day. Because that's my go-to. If it's been like really bad. No, and one time I always tell this story, like I live in the South, and I did some event where we had to wear one of the, like the big hats. Yeah. And I still had it on and was like in the tub in the dark, I don't know, like drinking whiskey. And he came in and he's, babe, like, call somebody. And so I'm like, I'm fine, just let me through it. And I'm not advising you turn to alcoholism when you have.
I totally get it. Totally get it.
In a blue moon, you do. And so, just make sure, if you've done it more than like once or twice that month, don't do it again.
Don't do it again.
Kind of, because some of the rejections sting, like they suck, and like you feel like they lead you on a little, and then they say no. And one time I got really close to, like standing at the altar, like getting ready to say I do with, one of the big five, and it was and then it didn't come to fruition. That was one of the hardest blows ever. I literally was like, why did it get this far and then fall apart? Like, how did that happen to me? And, but I will. And then you go to the next thing. And I got a piece of advice from my mom once, and that I really like. And she said, when something really hurts your feelings, you get one day. Feel sorry for yourself that day, watch the movie, sit in your pajamas. But you only get one. And the next day, even if you're still sad, you pull your big girl panties up. That's what she told me. And that's how I do it. I just go anyway. Because what's the alternative? Get nothing and just drown in your sadness. So that's kind of how I get through the obstacles. And just never, ever, ever giving up. Like never, doing that fallback thing. Just don't do it. Yeah. Just go through the hard times. Just endure it. What you do.
Yeah, you'd be willing to push through the door, right? And sometimes it keeps locking, and you have to find creative ways to unlock it from the other side. I think I'm also going to add to our newly found friendship here that when I am having a rough day, you can find me in the dark, not in the bathtub, but in the dark, watching sports with a little glass of Larceny bourbon. So this is. So again, just continuing to build this friendship of ours. So I do want to ask you, because this has happened to me, not in the writing world because I'm so fresh into it right now, but in other parts of the world. And I've had this conversation with other guests on here, and sometimes, part of our prequel, we have all these positive voices in our heads, and we have those people, and sometimes you get those people who reject us, and we start to hear those voices trickle in and stay sort of in tune with our thoughts, like our soundtracks almost. There's a book that I love that talks a lot about soundtracks, and that we play over and over again our own voice, and it's the strongest voice that we hear. And sometimes that can be a little bit harder to navigate than simply just, that mentality of not giving up. I've been there, and I tend to walk away from it, but it yells louder at me. Mm-hmm. So, have you ever had that self-doubt creep in? Not just the people that are in your ear saying, no, this isn't it, but yourself. Have you ever had that happen where you're telling yourself, nope, I'm never going to do it? And how do you break that down to get back on track to overcome that?
Yeah, that one's the hardest, because I'm hardest on myself. And sometimes I get so frustrated. This sounds almost like conceit. This sounds almost bad, because I know I'm good. I'm a good writer. And I just think, like, somehow, though, I just can't push through that, like, next. Like, once I was in, I thought I was in. But then there's always a next level. And it just feels so hard to break through where you're that bestseller, like I've made it and I don't have to work this hard anymore level. And sometimes I'm just like, why this book and not mine? Why her and not me? Why am I missing something, or is it just not in the cards for me? Like, I have this almost like it's the, world against me. And for some reason, I just can't have it all, but then I kind of shut up that voice because it annoys me. I'm like, like, don't be that girl. Don't be that girl. And then I remember anybody who gets anything big, you have to be almost delusional about it. You almost have to believe it about yourself to the point that like it's like borderline not okay. Like, you have to believe in yourself that much and kind of inflate your idea of yourself a little bit. Like, no, I am this big deal. I am what everybody wants. And my moment will come. And also, I think like it's like a God thing. Like, like I believe in a higher power, and there, when it's meant to be, it's going to come at exactly that right time. Nothing in my life has ever come at the wrong time. And so, I just have to remind myself, but I have to let myself pitch my fits. I have to have those moments where I like yell and scream and bitch and moan. And I mean, that's just me because I can't just like let it build up in me. But the fits are more dramatic than it is at the end of the day. And I don't have a choice. At the end of the day, I'm just going to push through because I'm scared of not having what I want. And that's honestly, it's the bottom line. It's not some magic thing. I'm just gonna. As long as I can take one more step, I'm gonna. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with throwing fits. I do that all the time. I mean, you ask my wife, that's my second nature. I love that you talk about your dreams and being delusional. I started having this conversation with people a while ago, and you said like, I fear not getting, what I want to get, like my dreams. And I tell people all the time to dream in nightmares. Dream about the things that you feel are the most unattainable, and then go get them. Run toward it. Don't be afraid of them. Make them afraid of you. And I think you voiced that so perfectly. You've been through so much as a writer, and here you are, 2 books. Told me that you're working on your 3rd right now, which is really, really exciting. But you've obviously taken a lot from the experience, and I know that you're an editor for a magazine, probably that have a lot of writers that are trying to break into the game. So how do you give back and pay it forward to those writers through the experience that you've had?
There's a couple different ways. First of all, I will look at, if you have the balls to send it to me, I'm going to read it. And if it's good enough, I don't care where you come from. I don't care if you have written for 1,000 publications. I don't care if you dropped out of the 8th grade. If you can write and you can bring it, and I will give you your moment. But if you're not willing to do the work, and it's, and I always look for an X factor. I don't like in our magazine's lifestyle, which is the only thing I could probably do. I could never be like a reporter. That's not my thing. But when I can write about people and put a little bit of like the magic in it, and then that makes me feel good. And, if you have the X factor, I'll consider you. Absolutely. And I've had a lot of writers, hey, can you help me with my query letter? Can you help me with this? Like, even with fiction, and like, send me your stuff, and I will be very honest and tell them like, look, you're not there yet. You need to do X, Y, and Z and then do this. Or because when people told me that, I took it to heart, and not that you can always go with other people's opinions, especially about subject matter, but with the things that are very black and white, like this is the process to get in, then you need to listen to advice, because it's, there's not that many roads. Like, it's not an all roads lead to Rome thing. It's like maybe 2 roads. And so you have to kind of follow that. But also with the magazine, we have a section called Women in the Making, and where I let girls from elementary school age, like as soon as they're old enough to write, ages like 7, and I kind of cap it at like 15, because once they're a little older, I'm like, no, if you're 17, 18, write me something, real, like I'll pay you for it. But I will let them submit stories writing about other women that inspire them or things they want to be. And it's very inspirational and aspirational. And so I will publish young girls and in the magazine. And this started because I went to a career day at an elementary school, and an 8-year-old girl came up to me and she said, I'm a writer, and that's all I want to be is a writer. And she had made a little resume and handed me her resume. And I said, you're hired, write me. And I ran it in the magazine. I went to the publisher and said, we're running this, like, we're doing it. He was like, I'm behind you. I'm like, okay. I was ready to fight, but I don't have to. And she wrote this beautiful little story. And so then I started opening it up so that little girls could write a half-page article in each magazine.
What an amazing idea. That is like, I mean, listen, I'm an elementary, like I taught second grade. I was a K-5 principal. That just like, that hit me, yeah. Lorna. That is so cool.
Sophia, and she's just like, here's my resume. Like, she was so
cute. And you're like, yes, you are a writer. Exactly. My first grade teacher told me I'm a writer. I'm going to tell you you're a writer. That is so cool. That is so cool. Oh my gosh. Is the publication online at all, or is it just something that it is? Okay. I'm going to have to check that out.
You can go readcw.com or charlestonwomen.com and get there. Either of those.
Okay.
To read.
All right. I'm gonna have to check out that Women in the Making. Yeah. That's super cool. That is so amazing. And is it limited to Charleston students, like students in within the area?
Yeah. Even though the magazine is kind of read beyond Charleston, because we're actually the only women's magazine in the state of South Carolina. Okay. There used to be another one, but it doesn't really exist anymore. So people read it throughout the state, but it's really heavy, of course, in this area. But it's a lifestyle brand that, Charleston's like hot. The Low Country's hot right now. Like everybody like loves the South and loves like the area. And so we're getting readership from all kinds of places just because
that's awesome.
It's our world. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we talked before the show that my best friend lives down there, so it is a great place. All right, hey, a couple more things here before I give you the floor to tell us where we can find you, follow you, and continue to follow your journey. I usually ask for one piece of advice, but I'm going to kind of split it here with you. I'm curious about a piece of advice that you have for authors. And then just general advice for people who are listening and are struggling kind of through their prequel, trying to find their place, trying to get unstuck, and to live their best lives. So if you don't mind splitting that up, something for authors and something for just the general population.
Okay, I'm going to start with general population, actually.
That's fair. I like it.
You don't have time. The worst advice I ever got, I hate when I was in my 20s, and people would look at me and go, oh, you've got time. Don't even worry about it. No, you do not have time. Time goes by so fast. I am so glad I didn't waste my 20s because I got my first book deal by the time I was 30. Yes, enjoy life and do all the things, travel, look at the sky, swim in the ocean, but work like hell for your goal because you have time to fail, but you do not have time to sit there. And Gen Z, not hating on you guys. I was a millennial. It used to be hated on us, but now it's taking the. But there is kind of this like just sit and relax kind of mentality, and I think find joy, but do not waste those like energetic, like on fire. Too young and hungry to care about the failure years. Don't waste them. Use them. That's my general advice. My other advice for just authors, how bad do you want it? Ask yourself that first. And if you think, I want it, but it's not, it's not like the main thing in my life really, then, take your time. But if you think I want it so bad that I can taste it, then don't waste another second. Finish your book. You can't do anything with an unfinished manuscript. And then get ready to put on two hats. Wear your delusion hat. Be delusional about yourself. You are a star and you're going to make it. And then the other hat, tough skin hat, because you're going to get rejected left, right, and sideways, which kind of is at odds with the delusional guy, because he's like, no, I'm really cool. But you have to be both of those, tough skin and delusional, and then just go and don't stop one single day till you get there. And it might take you a decade, because that's how long it took me the first time.
I love that. I love that, and I also love that you don't have time.
Yeah.
That is, I think, for anybody who wants a dream. And when you said you do have time to fail, that really hit me. So thank you for all of that. And I would love for people to be able to find you and follow you and continue to follow your journey after this is aired. So Lorna, share with us where we can find and follow you, and with a snap of a finger, I'll have it roll beneath you here on the screen.
Instagram's a great place to follow me. It's just my name, at Lorna Hollifield. Slide into my DMs. I check them. I love to talk to other authors, respond to other authors, support any way I can. I love collaborating on podcasts and things like this. So yeah, Instagram's the best way to connect with me, like, personally. My books can be found Amazon, Barnes and Noble. The Ocean at Night, Tobacco Sun are the two that are out. You can read Charleston Women, charlestonwomen.com. So there's lots of places. Hell, just Google me. Just Google me.
That's what I'm going to put underneath you. I'm not even putting anything. I'm just going to put Google me. That's it.
No, any bad reviews, you don't read those. No, I'm just kidding. Those are really, really good. Look, reach out. I would love for you to reach out. So
awesome. I mean, listen, I probably will now. So right. Buckle up. Buckle up, Lorna. Our friendship is just beginning. I do appreciate you so much coming on and spending some time with me. And certainly as we go along, and when your third book comes out, let's do this again. Let's come back on, and we'll talk all about what you got coming.
I would love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lorna, and we'll talk to you soon.
Right, thank you.
Every so often you have an interview that, you just click the entire time. And certainly with Lorna, it felt very natural from the start. And she mentioned afterward, like, as authors, sometimes you just, right? You just know and you connect. And certainly we did. So you saw just the budding of a beautiful new friendship today on the Prequel. And I hope you enjoyed that, as we found all of these commonalities that we have in our writing and beyond. But truly want to thank Lorna again for the conversation. I had such a blast talking with her and getting to know her and her journey through what is a very difficult and challenging place to break into. And she has certainly overcome a lot to get there, and used her experiences and her prequel to, put her own stories out there in the universe. And I certainly enjoyed knowing that I'm not the only one who gets so emotional over my characters that I have to just, stop. Or, after a bad day, maybe a glass of bourbon isn't the worst thing in the world. So all of these things, certainly I appreciated in my conversation, and so much more. And a couple of those items I want to highlight before we sign off for the episode. The first one being that dreams are everything, and it's okay to be delusional. And I have said this to people before, and I said it during the episode, but I'm going to repeat it. Dream in nightmares. Look at your biggest fears and dream those, because those are the dreams that will continue to push you forward toward the things that you're most nervous about failing at. It's okay to fail. That is okay. Be delusional. Dream something that seems like it can't happen, and then go make it happen. And I think that was such incredible insight from Lorna today, that we had the opportunity to hear that, it's okay to take a second and be delusional in the things that you want to achieve. Don't settle for the standard. Don't settle for what feels comfortable. Don't settle for the thing that you can do. Push yourself. Be delusional to the thing that people tell you can't do. Be delusional to the point that you, in your own brain, hear you can't do it, and then shut yourself up. The way that she said she has to do sometimes. It's okay to wallow in self-pity every once in a while, but like she said, the next day, pull up your pants and get out there and do it. And I loved that so much. Have that X factor, have that piece of you that says, I'm going to be delusional, and I'm going to achieve whatever that delusion is. So I look forward to you being able to do that. Another piece, and she gave this only to the writers, but I think it fits for everybody. Whatever it is you're chasing, how badly do you want it? If you don't want it so badly that you're willing to set yourself on fire to do it, then maybe it's not what you should be delusional about. Have that intrinsic burning all of the time to reach what it is that you want. The second that that goes away, you're probably doing the wrong thing, and it's time to find something else to light your fire. And then the last piece that really hit home for me, and I want to make sure that I mention this, and I said this to her on the show, you don't have time. You have time to fail, but you don't have time to wait. Don't wait. Go do whatever it is you want to do right now. Don't sit around and say, well, tomorrow's another day. There's no time for that. You can't do that if you're trying to achieve greatness. In your prequel, you only have so much time. And if you want to be an impact on this world, go fail. Spend your time doing that. Spend your time failing. Spend your time messing up to reach the things that you want to reach. I believe in you. But do you believe in you? So, stop listening to me. Wait, don't stop listening to me yet. Give it one more moment. But as soon as I'm done, stop listening to me and go start. Don't waste any more time. There's not enough of that. And I want to thank Lorna for that. I want to thank her for everything because I really had an incredible time talking with her today. All right, so make sure you're following her on Instagram. One last time, you can find her on there and check out her books. Like I ordered The Ocean at Night like immediately after our conversation. I can't wait to settle into that book here in the next few days when it gets here. But if you're looking to follow me, www.mikeazzelina.com, on Twitter @MikeAzzalina, on TikTok @MikeAzzalina5, on Facebook you can find me just at Mike Azzalina, and then on Instagram @AzzalinaM. Yes, I did have to make that one a little bit different, and I am sorry for that. But otherwise, listen, what a great episode. Remember that you are loved and that you matter. Continue to write your story and start doing it now, because you don't have that much time. Go start failing. Write your story, and while you're at it, write somebody else's. Help them find the good in their own story. I appreciate each and every one of you for listening. Much love, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll talk soon.